Hello, we are going to start our open mic now. Welcome to everyone. We have a new setting. Isn't this beautiful out here? Slightly blinding. We don't know how to deal with the sunshine, but it's beautiful. Okay. So we have an open bar back there. If you want food, you have to go to Georgie's and order it, because they're not going to come down here. But maybe we'll just have words as food, and that will work. If I butcher your name, I'm so sorry. We all need to work on a handwriting. We're allowed one poem or 5 minutes, whichever comes first. If you've got a poem that goes on for days and days and days, I am going to stop you, just to be fair to everybody else. Right now we have 21 people signed up. If you did not sign up and you still want to, come over to me over there with my beer and I will get you signed up. Our first reader, our brave soul, is Carol. Is it Barrett?
Yes.
Yes, come on up, Carol.
Oh, that's not good. There's a switch on that.
How's the sound? Thank you. I'm going to read a fairly new poem, and I'm grateful to my colleagues in band who have critiqued this, or I might not be so confident sharing it with you. It's about transitions. We all face transitions, sometimes more often than we'd like. I have been in a transition job-wise, family-wise, and this is a poem that honors that process, I hope. It's called Leaves. Outside Mother's Cafe, a man in hoodie and waders is blowing leaves from the patio, equipment strapped to his back like an astronaut's gear. Any moment he could rise with loose billows of sagebrush into the cover of clouds. I sip my berry smoothie out of seasoning, wondering what use these words, what heights imaginable from ordinary leaves. Two women perch on high stools near the window, one in dreadlocks and brown leggings, the other coiffed like a poodle ribboned with grosgrain. They are telling childhood stories, faces full of sympathy, while outside our guardian gardener stoops to untangle a bit of crinkled paper from the rounded clumps of grasses and prickly pines, hitches a wide shovel to his back like a fishing pole, and departs. Thus, we make our small order of things, our breakfast of what has been and what may be. Eyes on the sky, its incredible waywardness. Thank you.
Nice, thank you. Our next reader is Karen Kelts. Are you here, Karen? Come on up.
This poem was an assignment for me. I usually write in free verse. And the person who gave me the assignment said, write in form, and write about something that happened in elementary school. The title is Miasma. Miasma is a word that has meanings at both ends of existence. The early meaning in Greek times was a ghostly image, and now it's the wiggly stuff that you see right at the top of polluting smokestacks before you see the icky stuff. November's wind blows at the gate. Mid-morning math, she clumps it late. Her mother's heels with pointy toes snot glissading from her nose. No socks to bundle blue-tinged skin. Mud-splattered knees, scab-covered shins. Ripped fingernails engulfed in crud. One scuffed-up elbow oozing blood. Long, tangled, ropey, flaxen hair falls over eyes that backwards stare. Blind, but not blind. Dense or dumb? She rubs her crusty eye with thumb. Her azure satin dress a wreck, hangs slack and filthy from the neck. Mid-calf it falls, ripped at the waist. Stained pilgrim collar trimmed in lace. Our teacher sits her by the grate. No punishment for being late. She smiles at us. Our hearts are stone. We do our math, leave her alone. At recess time, she wants to play. We laugh at her and run away. Confused, she chases us, stops, stands. But we ignore her outstretched hands. Ghosts like her leave soon, we know. We hoard our love, dispense more woe. She's not there, nor her despair. Our hearts on hold. She turns to air.
Our next reader is Neil Lemery.
I live in Tillamook, and I've lived there my whole life, and decided to go for a walk in a place where it used to be the largest gathering in the community for white people came. The trail leads me away into the quiet of long ago, towards the bay, into the forest where the wren falls and two hawks soar above. Through a marsh, dry now, waiting for fall rains, a shower of falling leaves covering my tracks. Soon salmon will be in the creek, struggling upstream for renewal. Spruce grow bigger, taller, shading the ferns, crowding out the salmonberry, until only dark, mossy rooms remain, much like long ago. They lived here once, those who came before, in long cedar homes tending fires, living their lives with salmon, elk, and eagle. Tides still come in and go out, and rivers rise and fall, and salmon come back every year in spirits time. Silent now, except for wren, chickadee, obnoxious crow, and the breeze off the bay, fresh with the change of tide. The warm smell of summer almost gone, last night's rain leaving promise of the winter, the storms, the dark nights, and the fires of the long house. I hear them now, proud Tillamook's chief coaches too. There's canoes slipping up the bay on incoming tide, all pulling together, all singing their song. The laughter of children greeting them on the beach, home again, and dinner almost ready. I think I smell the smoke, see the peak of the longhouse roof, and hear the women sing as they pick the last of the berries before tomorrow's storm, and next week, the return of the salmon, as it always will, as it always was, and will ever be. Thank you.
Okay, I hope I don't butcher this name. Our next reader is Betsy Tye.
Hello. I was
going to take advantage of Stephen taking to build a website, because that's what I just learned in my first workshop this afternoon. And I'm leaving my hat on because my father said a hat lends a woman an air of mystery. Never go out without one. This poem, I just want to say this poem arose out of a workshop with Paulina Pearson, who does this fabulous technique she calls springboard. If you haven't had her to your community, run, don't walk, and to get her. And the poem that she used as part of the prompt is At the River by Louise Gluck. And the subject of the poem is sort of where did you first learn about sexuality. So this poem answers that question. In 4th grade, Sally teaches me the basics. In the broad field behind Marion Elementary, where the heavy-soled shoes of boys playing ball had knocked up all the grass, leaving dirt puddles we bathed in during recess, Sally, freckles sprinkling her face like the cinnamon sugar spread on my toast that morning, leans in close to tell me she learned something major on Saturday, had notes to share with me. Enumerating slowly on the ringless fingers of her right hand, she lists. First, French kissing, his tongue, the doctor's depressor in your mouth. Second, he cups your boob over the cotton training bra you're proudly wearing. Third, he fingers you the way the plumber might unclog a sink. Finally, home base, when he climbs on top and sticks his thing in you, but it's too gross to go into any further, and Mrs. Madison is calling us in for more map making, which I'm already failing. The next day, Sal's details still cling, like a seeing eye dog that will lead me everywhere from now on. From the classroom to the bus, from the bus stop 3 blocks home, from the supper table to the alley, where the kids on my street play stickball, their voices ringing out the numbers on every hit. If baseball was the game we were all playing, who was watching from the bleachers? Which of us not watched? At the junior high pep rallies, I huddled with Sal, jeering at the jocks, the cheerleaders who kept us off their squad, the vice principals, their eyes shining at the sport, the tendons in their fat necks bulging as they shouted the boys to hurry round the bases and come home. 12 runs to 9. We always won. Sally never married, but I did. I knew all the rules, how to walk a man, how to bunt, how to score. I also just have to say this was published in Voicecatcher's first online edition, and we got a plug for that also in Tony Hanner's workshop. So check out Voicecatcher if you haven't.
Boy, it was quiet in here when she mentioned the word sex. Our next reader is the man responsible for our sound this weekend, C.S. Blue.
Test. Can you already hear me? Okay. I would like to do a poem to honor the current struggle for gun control in our country. And to honor those families of the Newtown victims who are courageously putting their grief on public display, to help facilitate and lobby for reasonable changes in our laws. I wrote this poem back in the 60s, right after my first son was born. The Vietnam War was in full force, Bobby Kennedy and Martin Luther King had just been assassinated, and gun control legislation was in the forefront of politics, just as it is today. Also, when I was still living in Los Angeles, I used to read this poem every year on the anniversary of John Lennon's death at the candlelight vigil held on his star at the Hollywood Walk of Fame. This is my anti-war and anti-gun poem, from 1969, Little Toy Gun. I gave you my name, and you gave me a son. He's starting to walk. I can't wait till he'll run. We'll ride him on ponies. He'll have lots of fun. But don't ever give him a little toy gun. He'll go around shooting you, me, and a friend. But it won't be a toy gun he'll use in the end. He'll find him a real one in the armed forces. I don't want my son taking mass murder courses. So buy him creative things, not for an impression. Let him develop his own self-expression. Expression is freedom, but don't get me wrong. I may not be free yet, but I'm getting strong. I have understanding of my own hang-ups. I need understanding so I can be free. And then when our son needs someone to confide in, he always can come to you, babe, or to me. Yes, I gave you my name, and you gave me a son. He's starting to walk. I can't wait till he'll run. We'll ride him on ponies. He'll have lots of fun. But don't ever give him a little toy gun.
Okay, our next reader is, okay, but I know it's a Z or S, it's Jana Z. Come on forward. Here she comes. Thank you. Can you hear? Is it clear? Yes. Everyone. I don't usually read new poems, but I've been daring because I'm so happy that I'm writing again after a dry period. I shared this new poem once already and it's morphed, and then I shared it once again and it's morphed. So I think this is where it's at. Back seat. Once you filled almost exactly inside the princess, the lines of the princess's ball gown blue and her hair yellow in your new coloring book, and you've peeked over at your sister's and hers is prettier, and none of her crayons broke, and you've pretended all the trees next to the highway are getting cut off by the line at the top of your window, and your daddy has sung a wheel of fortune keeps spinning around again and around again, and you've sucked and chewed the very last raisin in your little red box, and your sister has shoved your foot back to your side, and she's made a face at you, and your mother has said only to you, keep your hands to yourself, and you've picked the scab off your knee with nobody seeing. Once your daddy has sung la-di-da-di-da-di-da some more, and you've asked while slanting your eyes up with your thumbs if you're almost at Howard Johnson's yet, and can you get 2 scoops of pistachio, why not? And after only 91 bottles of beer on the wall, your sister has made your mother make you change songs. And then you get only up to the ants go marching 11 by 11 when they tell you to stop that too. So you whisper loudly, 100 bottles of ants on the wall. So your mother says, blow your nose, and reaches back your daddy's folded up white handkerchief. And you stuck it outside your window and held on to one corner tight and watched it open, flap, and flutter, wave, flap, a wing, a bird, a pretty dancing dress, a waterfall, ocean, you as a lady. Then your daddy says, put that thing inside. I already told you once, people might think you're waving a white flag for help.
Well, coming to Newport, I couldn't resist reading a poem that had just been published in a special ocean issue. This one is called Inland from the Edge, and it's in 4 parts. 1. Ever since I followed the Oregon Trail west a decade ago, I've thought I lived at the edge where the continent ends in ocean. But 90 miles inland is not the edge. The plants are different there, or grow differently in sea-damp air. Not tapering tops of firs, but thick, shelving limbs of shore pines rear against the sky, lean permanently eastward beneath the prevailing wind off the sea. In oceanside gardens, misted by morning fog, fuchsias reach the size of rhododendrons inland. Roses and dahlias sport blossoms wide as my hand spans. Leaves the circumference of saucers set off superabundant gold and orange nasturtiums, as if the land uttered itself fully only in the face of ocean. 2. A friend tells me how, years before we met, when he was young and bent on making art, he emptied his savings to rent a cottage on the coast for 3 months. There, working 12 hours and eating 1 meal a day, he completed almost 100 big still lifes, colored pencil and cut paper, a single huge series, mostly of flowers. As if his carefully balanced compositions of blooms in vases in front of a half-closed blind, his intricate cutouts of sheets of paper spaced by heavy sheets of glass could hold back the ocean. But the waves broke in his head as they break in a rock cave at the edge of the land. 3. We could all have been swept away young. But that artist friend now grows an inland garden, and messages reach me from my high school circle of rivals, AP classmates I lost touch with 4 decades ago. From time to time over those years, I'd see their names in roundups of recent advances in particle theory, on the faculty roster for a top medical school, in the music production credits for films that won at Sundance. Now I learn the physicist has a son and daughter, both in college. The research physician worries for her mother, 95, a month in intensive care. The musician has had AIDS for years, lost a lover, dozens of friends, has been close to death himself. Now the one whose vita I never found on the web sends Williams, "This is just to say," as apology for not requiting my story of my life these past 40 years with a like tale of his own. We could all have been swept away young. I ask about the one whose name none of the others has spoken, our group's irrepressible, brilliant mathematician. The answer comes slow. He killed himself in college. 4. The rest of those old classmates get together at least a few times a year. They all live now around where we grew up. Since then, I've put that place 3,000 miles behind me. Strange to think they stayed there or went back inland from the opposite edge of the continent between us.
How we have good poets here. Our next reader is Russell Smith.
Can you hear me okay? I'm short. Like many of you, I was trying to write a poem a day, and I did achieve that. One of my poems was a rant against our roofers, which I call replacing our roof. And so then I said, well, I should think about it from their point of view. So I wrote one in response called Replacing Their Roof. And so they're looking at us. I found that most of the guys had prostate problems. They were running down the hall with unzipped pants, and I rushed to my bathroom. They dropped shingles on the top of my roof like a sonic boom. My list was 2 pages long. So I'm sure they were oblivious to all of their behavior. So this is what they may have thought of my husband who's sitting right there, and me. Replacing their roof. Gray, reflective roof for 2 geezers. The guy prances around like a kangaroo, opening garage doors for our gear, clearing out the rafters for Habitat for Humanity. He knows what we need to do. The old lady plays Scrabble and writes with her friends in a room full of angels, and gets pissed when 2 fall and break. The old man repairs them. When we head for the bathroom, which she said we were welcome to use, not as often, we find small stuffed bunnies and chickens staring at us from the toilet top and counters. She puts down the toilet seat after we leave. We have overheard her telling friends she finds our music jarring and blaring, our hammering annoying, and just walking on the roof like elephants. She overhears swearing. We did blow up her lunch in the white microwave and a power surge. Lock her washer and dryer with equipment delaying access. Leave roof dirt on top of the machines. But we usually wore socks in the house. They are like Jack Bracken's wife. He climbs the ladder to inspect our work, while she plays inside with mixed seasonal decorations. Some of them are still Christmas. Playing word games and writing poems. The shingles match the sky this rainy day. They reflect the sun, but not today. She glows about the new sun tunnel just installed, but does not mention the new roof sheltering them. We are like carpenter ants found inside their siding. To her, we're just a nuisance.
Our next reader is Cynthia Jacoby. Come on forward. Cynthia is a member of our board for Writers on the Edge, which is a parent organization for the Concord this year. And she's grateful. I would like to offer a comment on fairly recent current events. Neruda comes out in National Poetry Month, April 2013. His disinterment has added irony to April. Another casualty unearthed from Chile's dirty war. Let us hope the resurrection was respectful, honoring his place in eloquence. Desiccated remains were sliced and sampled, tissue smeared on glass slides. Suspected cause of death, poison by injection. Political cause of death, fear of words from poet of the people. So you have come out, dear Pablo, unveiling your body of knowledge and leftward leanings. To counter the sacrilege of your exhumation, I propose sky burial on Mount Hoyos de Salados, your bones shrouded in a woven wrap of poetry and wild wreaths of clouds.
Right, our next reader is Jay McDowell. Joy. Joy, I'm sorry. Thought I had the gender right for sure. I understand, I credit. Anyway, it's Joy.
Well, now that Stephen's taught me how to get this microphone in position, there are no excuses for what I read, but I do have an excuse for what I wrote. I was going to search out some poems this morning, and my son called, he's the father of 5, and said, I need to drop all 3 little ones off with you. And that means a 2-year-old and 1-year-old twins. And they were pretty unhappy when they arrived. And so I sat down and tried to bang out something, but I actually heard Sharon Olds one time say that she edits on planes on her way to where she's going to read. So I am in the same league with Sharon Olds.
Who was driving?
Not me.
Yeah.
Kelly brought me over. This is called Monday. I tell my masseuse how I knelt beside Terry last Friday as the homeless woman died from cancer. No one from Terry's family came to be with her. On a blue mattress, she laid on the nursing room home floor. Last Friday, I did the right thing, I say, and settled into the massage. Suddenly, above my trapezius tangle, while I'm face down, the masseuse, who is a reformed meth addict, tells me she is drinking again. An entire bottle at each opportunity because she comes from a long line of drunks, and she's anxious about how she looks. The boob job and weight loss didn't evaporate fear. She admits she's lucky to be married to a breadwinning bad boy who loves her and the kids, but she fusses over clothing and social events. Booze quiets the disabling noise and chaos in her head. She never mentions the birthmark splashed across half her face. And I confess I had forgotten about the strawberry star until her drinking and anxiety came up. I rise from the table, make eye contact, blue on blue. We talk about addiction, me knowing only what 60-some years buys of any know-how, or fixing that silky monster that can devour a woman if she doesn't fight for her life. In my best words, I toss out a flotation ring, knowing that my friend in Albuquerque will tell me again that I'm a sucker for offering, that I have radar for the needy, and that moments like this are why my shoulders and neck ache. With my head bent at an odd angle, I drive home puzzling over friendship and support, kindness, and a suspicion I may be a professional rescuer. I must have some weird wiring or have perfected the art of a flat face. Whatever reason these people find me, and now I must find a way to touch this woman who is too wounded to touch me. Thank you.
what it means. There's an epigraph, a quote from a song by Paul Simon. The song is Baby Driver. The quote is, "What's my number? I wonder how your engine feels." Why give my poems to public scenes, ink of magazines on pages white, or phosphors on a screen of light, to reveal myself to you? Will all be read by neighbors down the street, or in cities on the map, or heard by those in chairs up the stairs in Newport by the beach? My eyes mist. I almost weep to hope my thoughts arrive in the cozy folds of your frontal lobes in your secret sleep. I show you my words because I want to know how your engine feels, especially if you're the woman. Oh my, oh yes. But even if a man or boy or girl, if you'll tell me I exist and what it means.
Our next reader is, I knew this right, Edwin Good. Right here.
I'm not a poet. You will notice this, I'm sure. What I'm reading is a translation of a poem. A translation of an old Hebrew erotic poem from the Song of Songs, or you may know it as the Song of Solomon. This is chapter 3, verses 1 to 5. And the voice of this poem is a woman. The book is full of women's poems and men's poems and dialogue poems and all kinds of stuff. And there is also in the book a kind of chorus which is referred to as Jerusalem's daughters. Apparently some friends of the woman. But the voice of this poem is in the woman. Whether it's the same woman as all the other women's voices, I don't know. So, sometime before 100 BC, or thereabout, in bed at night, I sought my life's love. Sought, but didn't find him. So I got up to go around in the city, its streets and squares, seeking my love. I sought, but didn't find him. The watchman found me, who roam around the city. My love, you've seen him? I had scarcely passed them when I found my love. I held him and wouldn't let him go until I brought him to my mother's house, the room where she conceived me. I put you on oath, Jerusalem's daughters, by the gazelles or the does of the wild. Don't rouse or awaken love until it wishes.
Nice. Please welcome Anita Sullivan.
Well, that's a hard one to follow. Gulp. I'm going to read a poem, which is the title poem of my new manuscript, which I've just completed, in as much as anybody ever completes a manuscript. And the title of the poem and the manuscript is "The Land Renews Its Role as Horse." This particular poem came out of, as all my poems do, experience. And it comes from eastern Oregon, where Tan and I last year were, in October, were visiting. And it's right at the end of the Columbia Gorge where you come up out of the river and suddenly you're on the sort of the flat and there are meadows. And it was just incredible in the October light. And it just hit me in the face. The poem is fairly short, it's in 3 parts. And there's a reference to time in its red tree. And that comes from, I didn't make that up, it comes from Guatemalan mythology where they believe that there's a tree, I can't remember the name of it, that stands for time. The land renews its role as horse. An hour comes when the streams and the grasses beside the streams and the trees beside the grasses turn the same color. For the sake of time and its red tree, the fervid sun completely dissipates from roundness into smithereens. Behind us, giant windmills have gone down into the clefts of gray-brown hills until only their blade tips show like spinning crowns of white thorns. On this October afternoon, we wander the fields and a pond hangs in the air. Seeking its source, we see some of the mossy boulders are sheep, remembering their eyes were bequeathed to them by the ancient horses as they were going extinct.
Our next reader is Jill Harden.
Empty now, a prayer. Make me a soaring seagull, sailing through that sunset to another world. Here, my cluttered world awaits my waking, to attack the peace you give me in the night. My sleep, my only sating. I am a little child, sad of what I thought was fine. The default attitude, oh well, has finally pushed me over the line. Oh God of good and beauty, peace, let not my vital force decline beneath this dark, deathly cloud. Let desires designed to satisfy creation live wild in me again and more, without thought's limitation. Empty now, disperse my mind. Let not my mental fettering tether that which comes to me. Rather be it well, the swell of wings lifting my soul's spirit back to grace, flowing here and now. Otherwise, as angels fly, let me be the next to rise. Make me a soaring angel, sailing into the sunset to another world.
Our next reader is Tim Boland.
Well, I know some of you. I'm from Eugene, and I've been at the Concord a couple times before, and it's a great pleasure to be here again. I've got 2 short poems that are about the blues, about blues music, and I am doing a presentation tomorrow afternoon called Floating Verses in the Key of Blue, which is about using blues lines, blues lyrics, for the pure pleasure of playfulness, and also as an inspiration for leading to something perhaps greater. So the first one is called Floating Verses, and it's one description of what I mean by floating verses. If the river was wispy and I was a diving duck, one of those speculations that surfaces within the work of the 1 and 4 and 5 chords, that medicinal blue pattern as familiar as breath. Rather drink muddy water and sleep in a hollow log. A definitive declaration of active rejection from the music Handy first heard in an open tuning with a table knife slide beside a railroad station. Let me be your sidetrack until your main line comes. The accommodating plea that the singing brakeman couldn't help but borrow from the blues. The convenience of the floating verse, extending the story playing out in song, integrating the provisional, playing all night long. And the second one is called the 2 available modes. We tend to think of blues music expressing sorrow and sadness, even though the paradox is you feel better after the expression of such feelings. But I think there's more to it, and this is addressing that thought. The 2 available modes. Man says it all when he blows his harp without a need for words, expressing the ache of lonesome, the sorrow of the sun going down, the wail of the evening train. But come payday's full pocket, he'll sing of fish fry and barbecue and a cakewalk into town, ready for the rhythm of Saturday night.
Woo! Our next reader is David Filer. About 6 more readers. If you somehow missed the sign up and still want to read something, let me know.
Get bright. Thank you. I think I can squeeze a couple of short poems into 25 minutes also. The first one, with all the talk today and Ellen's address and Rick's presentation on the sonnet, suggested to me to read this poem. It's a traditional sonnet. It's included in the chapbook called Housekeeping, which is for sale up in the book sale. And all the proceeds from any book sales go to my wife's project in Kenya called the Imani Project. There's some flyers up there on that too. This sonnet borrows in this first line a good deal from Reginald Gibbon's line from his poem, The Voice of Someone Else. And it's not quite the right time of day yet, but it will be. It's called Evening. Every old thing is with me when I let the evening in all its histories. Venus, just now an hour from her set, bright above hills and fog. Wind skims the trees, hissing as if static, and then signals coming from somewhere, crossing the space imagination frames, pulses, sweet and full, like memories I know I should not waste. Where are you now? What have you learned that you're here in this unfamiliar place? I'm looking west to a sky growing dark and cold, all but the planet's lamp-like trace. Somehow your faded voice has touched me here. How distant love can be and still be near. And this little poem is actually the wrong time of year. This is an August poem from August last year. The title is Both ... and. Finally, some summer heat, up to expectations. We sleep under just sheets and avoid exertion. We wait for this all year, and then we hide from it. Dream poetic winters, hearth, red wine, dark chocolate. No weather exactly right. This is not heaven. highs would always be 77. But then we couldn't grouse and wish it were other lower highs, higher lows, like it is, but better.
Actually, here on the coast, it never gets that hot. Our next reader is Joan Dowdy. There you are. I'm not reading, I'm reciting, and I'm a very spacey person, so we'll see, but it's very short. But before I do that, I wanted to tell you that when I was in graduate school, which was like 1988, Sharon Bowles came to Eugene to read, and my friends picked her up at the airport. She was editing her poems in the car on the way to the reading. So, yeah, she does that. So the poem I'm going to say to you is very short, and it's actually written for winter solstice, but we almost have a summer solstice, so you can think of it inside out. And it's also in a book that's for sale upstairs called The Poetry of Yoga. And the name of this poem is Solstice Poem, and it goes like this. Black and white wear each other's clothes, and the darkest moment is that moment when the dark lets go. The thing to do, I guess, is love the darkness, knowing darkness also disappears, and trust the light, though it comes and goes and makes no promises. Alrighty, our next poet is Lawrence Tile. Now here, there you are. Come on up.
Well, let's see, 5 minutes, that could be 25 haiku or 25 limericks. That's going to take maybe 3 minutes and 12 seconds. Since we never met, I noticed you one day noticing me from across the park. If it hadn't been for the pond between us, I might have made a move. But I just kept on with my noticing. Your generous smile, reflected in the water, reminded me of a quiet kindness. I'll bet you like ice cream and little kids and would go to the beach with me for a swim. Afterward, we'd get a Coney Island and do that get acquainted talk. Sadly, the economy is bad, I'm out of work, and must move away. Since we never met, this is where the poem ends. Picnic in the dark. There, alone in the darkened theater of first romance. Hormones roamed the room as moonglow softly played, and the girl, gossamer, glided toward the object of her love. The image, a burning billboard in my mind, haunts my dreams, where the demon beast of night howls out, Kim! This is called checking out. How well do you wait at the store in line when the old woman opens the small leather coin purse and counts 19, yes, 19 pennies, and the cashier's jaw tightens and you shift one foot to the other. Then a boy, 17, puts a single long-stem rose right down on the rolling black conveyor belt. It's my girl's birthday. And you look down at the infant in the stroller, all bright blue eyes and pink hands. This is trivial, but I like it. This is called St. Bernard Puppies, 18,630 coupons. This is from an Alpine ad in Life magazine in 1964. In the long lift lines, I light up the smoke. With my buddies there, share a favorite joke. I smoke in the car, at school and at home, on on the sly in the library when composing a poem. Nicotine's my friend, my doc says okay, so with coupons in mind, I'll do 6 packs a day. It's just 9 years, I will reach my goal, redeem my coupons, and have a puppy in tow. For my pup, I'll name Rescue. We will toast with a beer, raise our mugs on high, cheer. It's downhill from here.
All right, I'd like to welcome to the podium one of our favorite local poets, Mr. Scott Rosen.
I'm not big on introductions. This is from 1965. It's one of my surfing poems, and so I'm going to say it's about education. Truth of it is, that year I was wet a lot, ditching school more than not. There were good days, that long, warm fall, good waves, gentle, warm easterlies, tickling their brisk, steep faces as they rushed us across the shallows. We would have ridden every one if there had been time, the 4 of us. None of us could get enough. We missed some days in hard wooden chairs, the dull drone of Mr. Granada's version of U.S. history, the warble and chirp of Miss Elliott as she worshipped Emily Dickinson's endless self-martyrdom, the assurances of Mr. Osher that math was our future, and standing in the sun in grim, gray gym shorts, enduring the pleas of Coach McElvain that we try out for football come spring instead of wasting our time surfing. Gentlemen, playing football will prepare you for life, Coach Mack would intone, forehead crinkling below his flat top. You will have moments you will never forget and make friends for life. You'll learn teamwork and create bonds, gentlemen, that will shape your judgment and test your abilities for the challenges of the adult world. You'll look back at your days on the team as the formative experience of your transition from boys to men. Coach Mack couldn't always stifle a wetness in his eyes, maybe from a formative experience he remembered, until Vern asked him once how much time spring training was going to take exactly. And Coach said, a lot. Every afternoon after school, Saturdays too, but not on Sundays because that was the Lord's Day. And Vern said, oh, that won't work, sir, because I surf after school on Saturdays and Sundays. Coach Mack put his nose an inch from Vern's nose and squinted at him like Clint Eastwood in a spaghetti western with a shiny whistle dangling from his neck and growled, Mister, let me tell you something. Surfing is just goofing off. It teaches you nothing because there's nothing there. It's a waste of time. You hear me, son. Don't throw this opportunity away that I'm offering just to fool around in the water. You hear me, son? Came a day that fall. We should have been in class, but choosing joy over education precipitated a crisis that brought Coach Mack to the beach with Vice Principal Benson and Counselor Roger and a bullhorn. You could almost hear the crunch of their wingtips in the sand as they shuffled their gray, baggy-suited selves, sweating mad, to the tide line and yelled at us like a trio of gangland enforcers come beachside to break our legs and make an offer we could not refuse. Fellas, you better come on in. We know who you are. Time to face the music. We know your names. The fun is over. Well, if we're in trouble, I guess there's no point in going in. So if they know our names, why don't they just holler them out, said Bert. That's a good set coming, said Dave. So we decided the fun was not over. Not as over as they thought. So kept on sliding, hooting brown, salty water boys while they tried to talk the lifeguard into retrieving us.
Our next poet is Katie Everhart.
Okay. I'm lucky enough to have a chapbook coming out this summer with Utter Chaos Press in Eugene, and it's called Alaska Poems. So I'm going to read a poem from that. And let's see, the poem is called The Place Where You Go to Listen, and I'll read the footnote to it so you have the sense. The place is a room linked to 5 Earth data streams: seismic, aurora, lunar, seasonal, and day length, and it's at the Museum of the North in Fairbanks, Alaska. And I was there in the month of October. The place where you go to listen. You hear undertones, throaty rumble like a Baltic ferry. Above, thin threads of mechanical or hive hum sound. Unorganized strings, first limbering notes of an orchestra in the distance. Not exactly dissonance, but not the same note. Averaging sound, reducing notes mathematically, coalescing. Immersed I am inside a room that inhales the earth's tonal pulse, easily distracted into speculation and imagining. I see places that exist, have, might, or don't. Is the sound coming from inside my head? Themes I wish I could hear, rooted in the forest or standing on a windswept ridge beyond. Flute melody, elfin whistle, bells, lilting phrases, thin as mist, booming bass, rising tide subsumed by earth and ochre, color like dreams behind closed eyelids, wall panels, mutate hues, gold blends through gray to ethereal, mountain sky, flawless blue agate, resolving. This morning, they say, the room glowed red. Listen, might this be a tinnitus? The humming and ringing that comes on and off and fills up my ears? Age? That I try to ignore. The room is successful in drowning this out, or else it just stopped. Hiatus, maybe. I sit on the bench in the roomette for listening and listen and feel the best way I can. Others come in and stay a few minutes, or 5, chased out, I guess, by the earth's noisy beat, or beast, or hurry, or life. At 4 o'clock, I return to the room and see different things than I did before. Turquoise strips in the panes that aren't windows, gold reaching amber up from below. Blue at the top of the wall falls to indigo halfway to night. Surely you know, while inside the room, that outside the land has silently swallowed day and the sun's orange disk. Inside, sound deepens, the rumbling engine hiccups. I wonder, what canceling effects, modalities, arithmetic occur? How do you program the earth, and why? And what happens in cause and effect are reversed, and music paddles the earth.
Oh, nice. Our next reader is Frances Payne Adler.
Hi everybody, it's my first time here. What a room to read in, I tell you. I'm going to read a poem called, I don't have my papers with me, so I'm going to do it digitally. Epigraph. The United States spends approximately $250 billion annually to maintain troops, equipment, fleets and bases overseas. 865 bases operate outside the United States. So I call the poem, Dear Legislators. Dear legislators in capital cities, sweating in stone buildings this session, searching for cash and coins, for clinics and coronary bypass machines, for bandages and bedpans, searching inside books and briefs and file cabinets. Surely you've looked everywhere, but what do I know? I'm just a poet with my papers and pens, just a professor with my satchel and silly books, just a former nurse from Canada with my starched cap and soft-soled shoes. Have you checked the bills coming in for aircraft carriers and chemicals, for our bases in Colombia and Cuba, for gas masks and guns for our soldiers in Greece, Kyrgyzstan, and Paraguay, for tanks and tracer bullets in Thailand and Sao Tome and Principe? Have you asked why we're still buying barbed wire and bayonets for our battalions in the Marianas and the United Arab Emirates? What about the cost of nuclear intelligence for our Navy in Norway and the Netherlands, or artillery for our armed forces in Egypt, Ecuador, and Ethiopia, in Japan, Djibouti, and Jordan, in Panama, and in Puerto Rico, Spain, and Saudi Arabia, in Poland, Liberia, and Italy? Can we talk about foreclosing the bases? Funding defibrillators instead for families in Florida and Delaware? Buying syringes and scalpels and stethoscopes for clinic staff in South Dakota and Colorado? Pacemakers for elders with arrhythmia in Alabama and Alaska? Bicycles and jogging institutes for Illinois, Indiana, and Iowa? Treadmill machines and touring nutritionists for Utah, Texas, and Kentucky? But what do I know? I'm just a poet with my papers and pens, just a person wondering why we're buying bullets with billions instead of seeking care for our millions. Thank you. I'm giving a conversation tomorrow afternoon called Dare I Call You Cousin? It's about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict as an example of poetry and conflict, collaboration, and possibility. I hope you can come. Thank you.
Okay, unless anybody says otherwise, I will be your final reader of the evening. My name is Sue Pagali-Lick, and this is inspired by my father. My dad just turned 91 on Wednesday, and we have these long conversations over the phone because he's back in the Bay Area. But he's a storyteller. Never been a writer. Can't see why anybody would be a writer, but he likes to tell stories, and he's got a good way about it. So this came from him. It's called Department of Motor Vehicles. These days you wait in line to get in line. It took 4 damn hours to get my license, and I had called first for an appointment. It didn't used to be that way. When I got out of the service, my license had expired, but I was driving a bus, taking all the cherry pickers to work. I drove fire trucks overseas, crash trucks. Hell, I could drive just about anything. So I left the bus in the parking lot, went in and talked to the man at the desk. How'd you get here, he asked. I drove my bus. He looked out the window and there it was, perfectly positioned between the lines. Well, son, I know truckers you can't do that. Take the test, I bet you'll pass. And I did. I traded my wrinkled Army license for a shiny new civilian one and climbed back into the silver Peerless bus. Glad to be picking up cherry pickers. Happy to be picking up anything that wasn't broken, bloody, burnt, or dead. That concludes our open mic tonight. We are blessed with a lot of great poets. Thank you so much. We'll see you again at 9 o'clock in the morning, or before that, 8 o'clock breakfast starts. Come on.